Hey guys, Sav here with another Raid Shadow Legends video. This week we have the patch 4.9 going live, and as with every patch, I will always do an unofficial patch notes breakdown where we look at not only the patch notes that player release, but any sort of undisclosed changes in the game code. So what patch notes have we got? Now I'm not going to go into great detail about all of the big dupe system. I think that's pretty self-explanatory in terms of what it does. There's no real detail behind it. So I'm just going to skip over all of this bit. No changes to the sparring pit, which is unfortunate. Faction Guardians are pretty good. I think that's fine for most people. Empower, we don't even think about. Some of the builds that I've already seen about empowerment look like insane. You might as well just not worry about Platinum Arena. And let's get to the stuff that is the most interesting. So the one thing I do want to touch on is life tokens. So I'm not really sure what this life token system is going to do for a lot of people. I think they're far too expensive. I think the champions are good, especially people like Fushan, Morley, Sir Nick. They're very good champions, but they just, the majority of people are not going to want to burn those duplicates. I think the system is dead on arrival, and I got a feeling it's going to be a bit like Sacred Shards, where Playroom have this concept of how valuable they are, that it's just not respective to the player base and what the player base know, because everyone knows that if you want legendary champions, ancient shards are more likely to get you the legendaries than sacreds. It's just based on the pure volume of ancients you get versus sacreds. So we'll have to see how that goes, but I would seriously suggest to anyone watching this video, don't burn them for life tokens. It's not worth it. You lose too much. Okay, so the main thing we want to talk about here is Bommal the Dreadhorn. I've covered this in the last two videos, so if you want to look at how the A2 has changed the way that the boss is going to operate, take a look at the previous two videos. And I think especially if you were running a Crimson Helm strategy, if you're finding it's harder to do floor 50 and floor 90 and even potentially floor 10, take a look at those. But here we've got a few changes. So the first big change that we obviously didn't know the number, but they did say that they were going to increase the bomb damage, and they've only done it 300%. That's just not enough. I know 300% sounds like, wow, that's a lot. That's almost like, 1/3 more, it's 100% more. It's not going to make a big difference. You can't bring a bomb champion because they will just die. You need attack to make the bomb champion work. You can't prioritize attack. You need defense to stay alive. So the only way bombs actually work is through deflection. Now, if you're doing a proper strategy where you've got block buffs and decrease attack out, then the bomb is only going to do 1 times attack of the Dreadhorn, the Bommal boss. Now, that is about 7,000 attack when you've got the decreased attack on, which means at most you're going to be doing 21,000 from a reflected bomb. I suppose it's not bad. Is it worth it? Potentially. I'd rather just build more damage stats into my build than worry about. Honestly, it's not enough. The underlying problem with bombs need to be solved, that if all they're going to be doing is based on attack, it's not going to work. We need defense-based bombers. We need bombs being able to do more damage than they currently do. It needs to be more impactful. Simply just adding another 100% on it isn't going to suddenly mean that everyone is now going to use bomb champions. It's a pointless passive, so that needs to be changed. So we knew they were going to be halving the stun chance. That's actually very good, although 25% is still too high for you to not have a countermeasure. You can't run this strategy and just take the bombs, because you will lose, because eventually those stuns are going to break your chain and then someone's not going to be able to heal and you're going to die. So I don't really think that change is good, but it's not going to have a significant impact on the fight because you're normally already countermeasuring the bomb by basically not taking bombs. They've adjusted the accuracy and speed numbers on 10, 50, 90 normal and 10 hard, which is good, especially for the people who were suddenly unable to do normal Doom Tower. That's really good. I have got the exact numbers. We'll cover that in the unofficial part. But this is a great step. It would have been nice to see something done to 50 and 90 as well, because I still feel like the 50 and 90 numbers are slightly too high. I wouldn't say that they need to be dropped significantly, but you'll see the changes they've made on 10 should be kind of mirrored across 50 and 90 in my opinion. Then we've got some sort of basic battle fixes. So we've got the Scarab King. It looks like a visual thing with Saito with destroy sets. That's fine. Fix the animation with champions with AoE turn me to decrease attack on Bommal. Okay. Fixed a bug that made it impossible to select certain characters as a revival. Very vague. And they've renamed some champions. Stone Skin is now a Rock Beast. I'm guessing this is because Stone Skin is going to be an artifact set. And Sharpshooter is Drill Master. Now I'm pretty sure the other artifact set is, or the other thing is nothing to do with Sharpshooter. So that must mean we're going to get Sharpshooter sets, or something to do with Sharpshooter, whether it's a buff, whether it's a debuff in the future, because otherwise that would be a pointless change. They wouldn't do it. Now I have looked in the code. I can't see anything in there. So that's just something must be coming soon. And then of course they're hinting that Hydra is coming. Now the best, I think, we haven't been given an official line, but it seems to be that December or January is going to be the Hydra patch. Probably even in the state of information that we've got, December. So people need to start planning ahead. I probably will do a whole video on some planning thoughts about what you can do for Hydra. I might even do that this week on top of this video, or maybe next week, and we'll see what that goes. I've got a bit of a hypothesis in my head of how we can approach it, but it is very dependent on knowing what the stats are going to be in terms of speed, accuracy, attack levels, how much damage are we likely to be taking, how much damage can we deal. Okay, so that's the official patch notes. Not much to really go over. I said I've skipped over most of the dupe system. Let's take a look at now the new champions and the unofficial side. The disclaimer I always place on this video is obviously any of these bits of information that I'm giving you in the unofficial part is not official from Plarium, so it's subject to change. It is extracted from the information in the game client so that we kind of know it's there. It will be there at some point, but it is obviously not official. So I would say it's of that like 90% certain mark. In terms of some champion changes, there isn't really that many changes at all. We've had the 2 character name changes. The only thing to note is they've updated the description of Septimus's A1 ability. So now that it says he will also reset the cooldown of Holy Sword, his A2, when he counterattacks. Just to note, obviously if you kill a target with that A1, you're meant to get an extra turn. You can't do that with a counterattack. That was a fix I think they brought in recently. So what it basically means is he resets the cooldown, which he was doing already. There's not like there's a game mechanic. This is simply a skill description update. So let's take a look at the champions. If you want to know any of the skill abilities for these champions, I would recommend you head over to the Hellhades website, where we've got a guide in development. Hellhades will be going through them and updating them as he plays on the test server and picks these champions up. But what I'm going to do here is give you the multipliers and kind of give you an idea of how much damage they're going to do. So we've got Gamuran up here, who is an attack-based champion. So he's going to do it off attack, and he's got a very high base speed of 109. Now, the one thing to note, which is a trend across a lot of these champions, they're all attack-based, and their attack base value is very low. You might think the multipliers are really high. The problem is the attack base is low, and most of those abilities don't have damage in their books, which means that they lose a lot of bonus damage. For Gamuran, we've got a double attack A1. That's going to be doing 2 times attack. So when we think about an average ability, what we're basically saying is anything that's godlike is the top 15% of all abilities in the A1 category. So we categorize it as AoE, A1, and then any other ability. For an average ability, that's basically the gap between sort of the bottom 50% and the bottom 15%. So it's that 35% window. A strong ability would be 50% to 15% of the top damage abilities. So it's not a big damage ability, it's a single target average. He's not a damage dealer. And this is the same thing with his A2, which is an AoE ability. 3 times attack, it's weak. It's not a damage ability. Now the A3 is a bit clunky. So obviously if you're targeting a dead enemy, he will do 20% of the enemy's max HP if that enemy is not a boss minion to all targets. And that ignores shields and it also ignores defense, but it can't crit. So it's kind of like just a fixed damage number. So that really depends on the target. So if the target's got 100,000 HP, it's 20,000 damage across the board. Not crazy amounts. It can't be multiplied by crit damage. If it's something that's got 200,000 HP, say it's like a minion, an ally minion, then that becomes a lot stronger. So we've rated it as average, but it could be a lot higher, and it also could be a lot worse. It's certainly not going to be very strong in arena. In arena, what you want is the fact that it blocks revive. Does it make him a weaker champion that he doesn't hit hard? No. He's still an absolute beast because of his passive ability and because he can actually target a dead person with block revive. That's a completely new, unique mechanic. No other champion can do it. He's also got incredibly good base stats when you factor in the fact that he doesn't do damage. Next up, we've got Kyoku, who I would say is the damage person of this patch. Kyoku is defense-based in terms of damage, base speed of 95. Probably, I would say maybe the best ally protector in the game now, just purely on the ability of ally protecting. It's kind of like a mishmash of the Sandlash Survivor passive with a typical ally protector, but the fact it gets an extra turn as well means that you can reduce your turn count. If you pull Kyoku, it's instantly the best ally protector I think that you have on your account, even potentially more than Krisk if you're not using Krisk for all his other things that makes him really strong, which obviously is a whole different factor. In terms of damage, the A1 has a condition. If it's attacking a target with 3 debuffs, then it will hit 4 times. So it'll always hit once, and then it'll hit 3 more times if there's 3 debuffs out. You can't have 1 per debuff like Elder Scark. It has to be 3, and you get all 3. If you get all 3, this ability will hit hard for an A1. It is godlike. It's not top godlike, but it is pretty strong. Now, getting 3 debuffs out on a target is not too difficult. There's a lot of double debuffers. Clan boss, you're more than likely going to have more than 1 up, more than 3 up. So I think that's a pretty easy, accessible ability. So we've rated that as godlike. Now, in terms of the AoE, which is the A2, 3.3 times defense. So that is strong. If you were to compare it, it's about the same as a Dark Elhane A2, and about the same as a Umbral Enchantress A2 in terms of damage, of how much that'll do. So it's good, it's strong. I think Kyoku is probably the best champion in terms of PvE content in the patch, I would argue. You know, you've got one of the best ally protection abilities. You've got a really, like an upgraded Seeker passive, AoE decrease attack with a funky thing with HP burn, which has been talked about, like Hellhades has mentioned it. I think they've released it, it's broken, because right now it's applying both when it should only apply it if it's not the decrease attack. And I would just add a point on that. How are we meant to know who has placed the decrease attack without remembering? If I've got 3 champions, all of them can place decrease attack, and I'm not watching the fight, then it's almost like impossible to control. It's a really strange mechanic to introduce into the game. I feel like if it's a legendary champion, it's only HP burn, it's not crazy, just make it 100% if you're going to want to do that. Or it should have been something like has a 75% chance to land decrease attack. If it doesn't, it's HP burn. Or make the HP burn ignore block debuffs. Something like that. At the moment, it just seems weird. It feels like an afterthought. So that's Kyoku. I rate this as the best champion in this patch. Okay, next up we've got Wither the Crown. Now, Wither the Crown is a healer. That is her role. She is an immense continuous healer. You put her up with someone like a Krisk or Demitha or anyone who basically has continuous heals. She's going to pump so much healing out to you. It's going to be insane. If someone picks her up, it's going to be like Demitha healing, where it's almost like, how do you kill anyone with this? If she keeps, cycling, she'll apply it, she'll extend it, she'll heal, she'll proc it. I think she's the first champion in the game that can force continuous heal to go, which I think is very strong. So she's only got 1 attack. It's good that it's defense based, because it means you can build her extremely tanky so she can heal. Very good base speed of 108. 2.1 times a single attack. It's average, but that's not her job. As a healer, she is immense. Next up is Urtikata. That's a bit of a mouthful. It's kind of a very cool portrait, I have to say. Attack based and lots of attacks. Now this is going to be a bit of a weird one, because you're going to look at these ratings and almost think, oh, it doesn't do any damage. But the thing with Urtikata is she will do damage as the fight goes on without doing damage. Now, here's the explanation behind that. 1409 attack is good. It's probably sort of a mid to high base attack. It's not like top. Top needs to be like 1600 plus. 97 base speed is okay. It's not amazing, but it's not slow. So the good thing about this champion is Giant Slayer is going to be very strong. We've got a lot of attacks. We've got a double hit A1. We've got a triple hit A2. And then we've got a 4-hit random A3. Now, here's the difference. If we're looking at Clan Boss, that random is a 4-hitter, which means it becomes a lot stronger. We always consider random hits as a single target hit when we're doing sort of general ratings, because normally if you're fighting a wave of 4 or 5 champions, it's very difficult to get all 4 on a single target. It would be spread across. So we assume you're going to hit 1 person. Because there is not a lot of damage in the books, and because these multipliers are not significantly high, this champion is actually producing quite low damage numbers, which is quite surprising. When I saw these, I thought, oh, this could be quite a big damage dealer. But the crux of this champion is the passive. I'm just going to jump into the game to actually read out that passive, because I think this is what's going to really define her as a very strong damage dealer. I'm in the game now. I've got Urtikata up here. And what we've got to see here. So I've obviously listed the 3 attacks here. Now, that she's essentially a poisoner that doesn't place poisons herself. So we've got the chance to increase the duration of those poisons. That's great. More poisons, more damage. Brilliant. Especially when we're seeing more champions come out like Dark Hail and like, what's her name, Venomage, who actually push the poison count. So you want to kind of give them sort of food for them to eat and produce damage. She's going to be able to keep 2 poisons extended on a pretty good chance. Was that 50%? So each hit, so you're probably going to get that once, at least once every A1. Poison sensitivity on the A2, great. Low chance, but it's 3 hits. So it means, you know, you're talking, what's that, 50% over 3 hits? You're going to get it to land once. And then the 4th provides Hex. Now, the passive is where this is all about. If this champion or an ally lands a critical hit, then there is a, what's that, 25% chance to apply 5% poison for 1 turn. Any crit, no cooldown, as long as there's a Hex. Now, 25% is quite low, but when you start racking up the attacks on a 2-1 ratio, you're having 10 attacks, 10, 25%, you're probably going to get 2 to 3 procs per turn on one clan boss. If she's landing the A1, she'll then extend those. So she becomes a poisoner by being there rather than her being her placing those poisons. Now, to some extent, you could say that's a bit awkward. How do you have to work around that? You could just bring a traditional poisoner. But if you're freeing up a spot, especially when we consider the way the Hydra is going to be coming, and one of those heads does require a Hex for you to do damage to it, this suddenly becomes a very interesting champion because you're effectively producing damage by just having the champion there passively. So whilst I've rated this champion low in terms of its on-hit potential, I think it could be a very strong damage dealer. I'd love to pull the champion to test it and to really play through with it. And maybe Hellhades will play with it on the stream or something in his test server. But I think really this could be an interesting champion. And finally, we've got the new Fusion Epic. And I feel like this Epic has been, like, something's gone wrong in the design. It's got an incredibly low base attack. Probably one of the lowest base attacks I've seen since Brogni and those type of champions. 738. Now, we know he's designed to be a sort of a supportive-based champion. That's fine. He's not meant to be a nuker. But it feels like he should have been a defense-based champion because his defense is about 1200, give or take. And the multipliers are not that insane, where you see with like Maneater. Like Maneater is a similar model of this, where he's got really low base attack, but his multipliers on his A2 is really high. It's about 8.2. This guy being at 5 times attack without any damage books, he's just not going to hit any damage. That doesn't mean he's a bad champion. I think he's actually very relevant for the Hydra boss, and he is in one of my provisional Hydra boss teams. I think he's definitely a champion you should go for because of the functionality in his kit. But in terms of damage, we've got an A1 that does 2.3 times attack, twice a double hitter, and then his AoE has got a 5 times attack times 1, and the next AoE is a 4.5 times attack times 1. Now, 2 AoEs means he's a stun set candidate. Ideally, the A1 would have been, but it's not the end of the world. I feel like if this was defense-based, then it would be much better as a champion. The damage would be better. You could probably lower the multipliers if you want, but being attack-based, it feels really weird because you can't really build him for damage, no matter how much attack you push. So the next thing to cover is the stat changes for Bommal boss. So they mentioned they were changing 10, 50, and 90 normal, and they have also changed hard 10. I think this should have gone further. So what have they changed? So before on normal 10, you would have been doing 130 speed and 100 accuracy. That's what you would have been facing. They've halved the accuracy and they've taken 15 speed off. So in order for you to beat the accuracy check, you would need around about 120 extra on the accuracy. So if you want to beat this, you need about 170 resistance now on normal 10. And if you were doing the speed check, obviously that's just 15 less. For 50, they've you see a similar trend here. So it's not quite halved the accuracy now. We've taken the accuracy down to 100 from 175, but 15 speed is still coming off. And then for 90 normal, they've taken 20 speed off and they've taken 100 accuracy off. So if you were struggling on Doom Tower normal, you will find it significantly easier now. These stats are much more manageable. If you wanted to sort of think of what the highest level of resistance you would need for normal Doom Tower next rotation, you're looking at around about 200 and what's the math there? About 120 more, about 250 resistance to 270 resistance. That will get you up to that 90 to 95% resist mark, where before you would have needed 400 odd. It's a big jump. And then hard 10, they've kind of followed a similar model. They've taken 100 accuracy off and they've taken 15 speed off. That's a good change. The problem is you've still got a big jump. And you'll see what I mean now when we just check the stages tool. So I'm on the raid stages tool. I'm going to have a look at floor 50 hard. So this has already been updated with the latest information. So you can now plan ahead for next week when that changes. So we can see the new stats here, 250 accuracy. So if you wanted to beat, that's 375 resistance that you would need. Now the problem here for floor 10 hard is we're going to go from a 250 Bommal accuracy, and we're going to go up to, just by changing from first difficulty to second difficulty, 550 accuracy. So if you wanted to beat 50, you need 675 resistance before adding decreased accuracy on there. That's a huge jump. You're talking almost 300. You're talking over double what I need from 10. And then of course they haven't changed 90, so even at 90 you're still at the really high 750 accuracy. If you want to resist this, you need 400 minimum resistance with decreased accuracy in the right setup. It's a lot. I feel like 750 should have been 650, 550 should have been 450. The speed at 250 is fine, that's what most bosses are. At least knock it down 100, bring it down a little bit, because these numbers are just too high, they're far too much. Especially when you still need 350 accuracy to be able to land your effects if you needed to, especially decrease accuracy. So yeah, the stages tool is all up to date with the latest stats. I think the change is great for early to mid game players, and to most people who were struggling. We heard a lot of tales where people were saying, used to be able to do all of normal, I can't even do number 10. So I've got one last thing to cover now from the patch notes, because it's been quite a small change. But in the last patch notes, I mentioned that we were expecting, or potentially we're going to see, another ninja style event where there would be a guaranteed champion after 7 days. And in the code, we now have a new character portrait of that champion. So this is the portrait of the champion that they're suggesting that is going to be in that program. We have no information about the champion. I'm sure Playroom will want to release an official thing in the future. The portrait looks really cool. I'm expecting it at the start of December, so it'll probably be in the December patch that we're going to get in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, I mean, it looks like my only concern is it looks like another demon spawn. We've had a lot of demon spawn lately. Maybe it's a shadowkin. It's got that blue hue, but it looks pretty cool. So that's the end of the unofficial patch notes. It was quite light in terms of the things they hadn't announced, whereas last time there was lots of different things. Next week I'll be doing another video, as always, on the science and sort of hidden information in Raid. If you've liked this content, please give it a like, and give us a subscribe to our channel, and we'll keep producing content for you. So thanks very much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.